Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today I got a bit of an outside the box thing I wanted to try out. So I want to go over this thing called watchcharts.com. So first of all, I should probably make a couple of things clear. I'm by no means a watch guy. It's just never something that's interested me that much. But I found this website and it begs the question in my mind, can we use TA on these watch charts to learn something about the overall direction of watch prices? Can we perhaps even discover that at some point in the near future watches will break out, and therefore it would be a good time if you wanted a watch to buy one? So this is kind of just an experiment. It's mostly for entertainment purposes. It may or may not work. I spent about 2 minutes just looking through this website, and like I said, I'm not really a watch guy. Even I often find myself, when I am wearing a watch, I typically still find myself pulling my phone out my pocket to check the time. So anyway, keep that in mind. With all that said, here's the website. I don't know if you've seen this before. There are charts. This is an index, and it kind of works like the S&P 500 as far as I can tell. So down here, we've got some performance data, and you can even see the constituents. So this Daytona here makes up 11.5%, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, then there's a bunch of watches down here that make up just 1/10 of 1%, as you can see. So it's kind of like the S&P 500 for watches. So right out of the gate, we can click it onto 5 years. Unfortunately, 5 years of data is all I can get. So we're just going to have to kind of make do with this. My plan is to, like I said, see if we can do some TA and see what we can see. So right off the bat, for the overall market, we could possibly entertain drawing some kind of trend line. And surprise, surprise, we've had a trend line break and a downtrend. So the question for me next is, can we identify any kind of trend line breakouts? I would say, as it stands, not really, unfortunately. We could maybe draw a line like this. And I do wonder if at some point in the future, could we see a breakout here? Could we see a breakout, and would that indicate that now is a good time, assuming we get the breakout, to actually buy yourself a nice watch? So for the overall index, if it was me personally, and if I was treating this like a stock or a commodity or something I was going to trade, I would not be willing to buy this stock, or excuse me, buy this watch, buy any watches until this index perhaps turned up, if I was thinking about them as an investment. So overall, for the watch index in general, I don't think it's fair to say I've learned anything significant here, other than perhaps we would want to see this at least start to base out and turn up before we could entertain some kind of breakout and a reversal for watches. This chart to me says it's reasonable to expect further downside. If we had more data, we might be able to see where historical areas of support were. But as it stands, we haven't been able to learn very much from the overall market index. I've got a few brands. We're going to go through brands, and I think some of them trade more technically than others. So let's take a look. So for our first brand, AP, as you can see, we clicked it onto the 5-year chart. I think this is essentially a weekly line chart. I think that's what we're plotting here. And we've got slightly more technicality coming out of here. You can say we've got, for sure, a nice decent area of support down here. Again, we had a range breakout in this neighborhood, and then we set this kind of uptrend, only to go and break down. And since then, as you can see, we've still been in a downtrend. So again, if I was treating this like I was in the market for an AP, would I be interested in buying this until we get a breakout? No, I do think there's probably more downside to come until we can get a breakout, or at least some kind of sideways basing that can resolve to the upside later on. Taking a look at Hublot, starting to get a little bit more technical here, aren't we? We had a well-defined level of support back here, and I would even go as far as to say that this is kind of like a squeezing pattern, right? We then, of course, get a breakout and a move higher before closing in on another one of these sort of squeezy patterns, only to get a trend line breakdown. And since then, we have been in a downtrend. Now, you'll notice, technically speaking, this was a nice breakout right here. Breakout, retest, resumption, little bit of uptrend. But since then, it's come back down, not only broken down on the lows, but we've also lost this area in here. So again, this tells me that AP watches probably have a lot more downside to come. It really is a shame that we can't get like 10, 15, 20 years of data, because then we could actually probably find previous areas of support and look for targets. Here we got Casios. So not just the expensive ones, we'll do the cheap ones as well. And you can see even these are starting to get a bit more technical, right? We've got a clear breakout, retest, resumption, followed by an uptrend. It's a bit rough. Oh, let's do it like that. Actually, nice touch here, and then breakdown, retest, resumption, lower. So starting to get a bit more technical in Casios. We can also see we've got this little breakout here. And I would say, as far as I can tell, that Casios have broken out and are still in an uptrend. They have, however, fired themselves an early warning sign. So we've got this, as you can see, breakout, retest, resumption, uptrend, possible head and shoulders top. Is that what this is? Followed by a breakdown right here. I would be cautious here. Taking a look at Rolex. Rolex is kind of interesting, right? So undeniably, we have got an uptrend. And to me, it says that we're potentially not too far away from a touch of support. So if perhaps we could combine this with some sort of trend line break, then I wonder if what we'll see is a touch of support, some kind of trend line breakout, and then we could perhaps look at Rolex finally bottoming out. So is it coming close to time to buy a Rolex? Quite possibly. One thing I'm noticing, as much as all of this is kind of lighthearted, I am noticing that if I was a watch investor, right, paying attention to these charts, drawing this line here and looking to exit your investment on a trend line breakdown would have been a very successful strategy right the way across the board, wouldn't it? It would have got you out there at the top. It would have got you out there for Hublots. For APs, you would have been able to get out right in this neighborhood here. And for the overall index, again, you'd have got out pretty close to the top. So I think what we can learn is, as silly as this whole thing seems, if you were into watches, you could certainly use TA to let you know when to exit the market or take some profit. Like I said, here's Rolex with limited data, only going back 5 years. It's kind of difficult, but undeniably, we've had multiple touches of support here. Support. Are we therefore about to get a touch of support and then a resumption? Of course, if we could come into here, bounce and then break down, that would tell us to be open to even more downside for Rolexes. If this was to happen, if this was to be the case, then I think I would personally be interested in trying to draw some sort of trend line like this and buying the breakout. So as silly as this seems, it kind of looks like it might work, right? It kind of looks like if you're in the market for a watch, if you're in the market to maybe exit some of your Bitcoin or crypto gains and treat yourself at the end of this cycle, then maybe this is a little tool that you could use to help you out. It's certainly something I'd be interested in looking at if I was being a bit more serious about entering the watch market. And so we'll do this with one more brand, Tissot here, only because I know CPM, shout out to CPM, he likes his Tissot watches for sure. So let's keep going. So we click this onto the 5-year chart and we'll see what we can find. The first thing my eye is drawn to is this sort of upwards channel right there. So you can see well defined in this channel, fake out to the downside, recovers the channel, touches the top, then we get breakdown, retest and resumption lower. So quite technical for Tissot at least. We can also draw a trend line in here, can't we? And we could quite safely say that we have had a breakout and now seem to be moving to the upside. I'm also noticing horizontally, we've got this area of support. So if we were to come back here, that would certainly be an area of interest to see if the price could do something along the lines of this, right? And then bounce from there. If that's the case, then this neighborhood might be a good time to buy yourself another watch CPM. And I think in the short term, early warning signs might look something in the neighborhood of a breakdown of this upward sloping trend channel. So if we get something like this, then here's your next area of interest, particularly if we can hold it. I will say this though, lose this level, this bottom horizontal level in the red, and we could well be looking for significant downside for Tissots. So maybe pay attention to that CPM. Overall though, I do see quite a clear breakout, retest, resumption. So all the while we keep printing higher highs and higher lows, I would say you're probably going to be all right. So what, if anything, did we learn? Well, I think first of all, it's pretty absurd to try to chart anything with only 5 years of data. I also think it's pretty absurd to try and chart watch data in general. Something that comes to mind immediately is it would be really difficult to manage the risk. So for example, if you decided to buy here, right? How do you have a stop loss for your watch? You're just going to be checking the price every day, checking the chart every day, trying to figure out, oh no, it's come back down below this low, so I'll have to sell my watch. Or is it much more of like a long-term thing? Do you wait for these big trends to play out, take some profit, wait for a big trend to play out, get back in at the bottom? I do think in all seriousness, there is validity to paying attention to the overall index, drawing yourself a trend line, and then using a trend line breakdown as an area of interest to take profit. That certainly seems to be valid. Whether or not this works once we get more data to the downside as well, maybe you'll be able to do this and wait for a turn up, and then hopefully you could get a cheaper price. I would say based on all of these charts, the market looks to me like there is more downside ahead for watches, particularly in the more expensive brands. It's pretty interesting to me that Rolex is apparently coming into an area of support. So like I said, if it can hold that, then you have a technical reason at least to be considering your Rolex purchase close to a local bottom. Lose that level, perhaps if we were to enter some sort of recession, then I think bargain basement prices could well be coming for Rolex somewhere in these neighborhoods down here. So anyway, that was just a bit of fun. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Is this just completely silly? Is this totally irrelevant? Or was this somewhat interesting? Do you think there's any validity in what I did today? And would you personally be interested, if you were in the market for a watch, in having a look at watchcharts.com and performing your own little TA as I did? So let me know what you think. In the meantime, I'll be back soon with more normal content, more serious alpha. So until then, look after yourselves. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.